Hey, hello, and welcome to our webinar tonight called Life After Remote Learning, the one-to-one classroom in 2021. Hey, my name's Matt Miller from Ditch That Textbook, and this is...
Hi, I'm Holly from the Infused Classroom, and we're so excited. And a lot of you got a lot of emails tonight, so we appreciate you coming and remembering.
Absolutely. And so tonight we're going to be talking about sort of the shifting landscape that we've had when it comes to remote learning and how we've kind of come out of it and what things are going to look like going forward. So we've got some practical ideas and some strategies that you can use on all of that and sort of a vision and a solution for what it looks like coming out of all of this. So we can see that several of you are checking in live. So good to see all of you here. And if you get a moment to just drop in and let us know who you are, where you're from, and what you do, then we'll get to say hello to you. But Holly, it really has been interesting to see how things in schools are starting to look a little bit different in light of all of the remote learning that's happened, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's very different. And I hear a lot of people say, how am I going to do those great skills that I learned remotely when I'm face to face? And so it's pretty the same. And I asked one of my teacher friends the other day, and I said, are you having problems with that? She said, no, I just thought I might. But it's going it's going well. I don't think people like teaching with masks on, and I get that. I don't like it either. But at least we're back face to face, so there's some celebration there. Because I know in one of our members in the drive is from New Zealand, and they are actually remote teaching right now.
Oh, yeah. It is interesting to see how everybody's situations are. And so we're super curious for those of you that are here live, speaking of your situations, we're interested to see, because we're talking today, like I mentioned earlier, about life after remote learning, the one-to-one classroom in 2021. So we're curious to see what your one-to-one situation is, as in, are you one-to-one with devices? Does each student have their own device? And if so, what device is it? How long have you been one-to-one? Or if you're not, let us know that that's the case. And there's a big wide variety in all of this, isn't there, Holly?
Yeah. And I just saw someone come in and saying hello from Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. And I know that we have another teacher, because I saw it today inside of the Facebook group. We have another teacher from the Dominican Republic. And it could be this teacher, and I just don't remember the name, but I didn't think so.
Yeah. Let's do a couple of quick hellos. There's Christine from Kitty Hawk Elementary in North Carolina. Good to see you. There's another person checking in. Hello, good to see you as well. There's Lisa Marie Bennett, a very familiar face to us, instructional technology in Texas. So good to see Lisa Marie as well. And Holly, as we've done some of these live videos, we've started to see that there are lots of schools that have already been one-to-one way before the pandemic started. Lots of Chromebooks, lots of laptops, still some iPad schools holding out and everything. But there are some of them that have joined and started going one-to-one because of the pandemic. And it's fascinating to see that whole situation because, you know, it was tricky enough to try to teach during the pandemic, but then to try to introduce devices in the middle of it, it's pretty tricky, isn't it?
Oh, devices, and a lot of people got new LMSs. So the teachers were dealing with both, and I just bless your souls if that was you.
Yes, totally agree. So Lisa Marie says one-to-one with iPads in the elementary, Dell laptops in the upper grades for 4 years. Excellent. Christine, one-to-one Chromebooks in grades 3 through 5. That's what I taught with, was one-to-one Chromebooks. Hey, there's Jennifer, instructional tech from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Good to see you. And then here's Connie Jones from Southern California, probably not too far from you, Holly. One-to-one for 3 years, Chromebooks, and I have an iPad cart in my room as well. You know, with Southern,
beautiful iPads and Chromebooks. That's the dream scenario.
You know, she mentioned she's from Southern California, and I just automatically assumed that she was probably close to you. I forget how big California is because I'm from Indiana. I can get anywhere in Indiana in 3 hours from my house. And I know, I just kind of forget the scale of California every once in a while.
Well, in the traffic, I can't get anywhere for 3 hours.
So Christine says some Chromebooks and iPads. There's another blend and K-2, but not quite one-to-one. Linnead says, in my school, students bring their own device, third grade and up. The little ones use Chromebooks. So that's interesting. And if you haven't checked in yet to let us know what kind of one-to-one situation you're in, then please do let us know. But so let's go ahead and dig into this, Holly. Life after remote learning, the one-to-one classroom in 2021, and whether schools are going one-to-one because of the pandemic or after the pandemic, or if they always have been. There's some pretty clear reasons why it's helpful to have that, right?
And one of those is because why do we have these one-to-ones? And often people think it's because of the pandemic or it's because of something else. But the way that you want to think about having devices in your classroom, we have them so that students can become the center of their own learning. And so when we get these, a lot of teachers do this, Matt. They say, okay, I teach science. Now, what can I do with the technology? I know I'm going to use Pear Deck. And Pear Deck is fantastic. We both love them. But you need to, but you need to reframe it to be, how can the students use the technology to show their learning? Now, Pear Deck gets us to that, then it's fantastic. And Pear Deck does get us to that, or Nearpod. But we want to ask, what can the students do? And that's what we want to sit down. And so, like, I've even had some teachers that I've worked with, I've said, put a Post-it on your computer. And when you're thinking about your lesson, ask yourself, what can the students do with the technology, and not you? Not that you can take a test and put it in Google Forms. That's good. Maybe we can make it better. But what can the students do?
Mm-hmm. Oh, man, you just said it. What can the students do? Like, that's the focus. You know, so often I hear of school districts that want to get the devices so that they can take standardized tests. We got to take those digital standardized tests. I'm going, oh my goodness, you're like missing out on the good stuff, right, Holly? I mean, that's totally missing out on the best parts of it.
It is. And it's understanding, now that we have these devices, that we're all pedagogists. We all really understand how students learn, hopefully. I mean, we learned that in teaching credential school or whatever it's called in your state. But now we need to become digital pedagogists. And we need to understand the method and practice of teaching that takes into account how the purposeful use of digital tools, the purposeful use, and that's really important, can increase student engagement, empower student voice. And when I say empower student voice, I mean it in a couple ways, but the most importantly is I want to hear from every kid as often as I can, instead of just hearing from the kids who raise their hand. And you've heard me say this. I used to say this back in 2017. I used to say, in 2017, if you're not hearing from every kid, but now it's 2021. So I'm going to say it's in 2021. If you're not hearing from every kid in your classroom, then you could be using the technology incorrectly. And so we want to help you think and learn how to do that. And then also how to create those more meaningful learning experiences for kids that aren't just fill in the blank, matching things that we did.
Exactly. I want to dive back into that statement you've got on the screen there for a second. The method and practice of teaching. This is digital pedagogy, what she's talking about. So a way of teaching that takes into account how the purposeful use of digital tools, we're taking those digital tools, which could be the hardware, the devices themselves, but also the software and the apps and the websites that we access through them. And when we take all of that and we use it in a meaningful way, not just like shoehorning a website or an app in there because we think it sounds cool or because the administration tells us we have to use it, but the purposeful use of it. And what can that do? I mean, there's this amazing list right here. What can it do? Number one, increase student engagement. Students are engaging more in the learning. We have their attention, we have their focus, we have their participation. So that's one. Empower student voice so that students feel like their voices are heard, so that they feel like they're reflected in the classroom. Like, that's what it'll do. And then create more meaningful learning experiences. That's kind of like the Holy Grail. You know, that's like what we're trying to do, isn't it? Is to make meaningful learning experiences. So the purposeful use of digital tools can do all of that. I just wanted to unpack that one more time because that's such a powerful statement you put on the screen there.
Well, thanks. And I see some comments coming through about some kids being a little burnt out. And I think for sure kids could be burnt out if their teacher stood and talked at the screen and had them just do Google Forms and maybe things, but that were kind of systematic. I don't know if that was happening or if that's what anyone is talking about, but I taught remotely for the first part of the year last year, and I had the exact opposite experience. My kids were more engaged. They were more all kinds of things, but this was my Olympics. I've been doing this. I got my first one-to-one classroom in the year 2000. So I was like, I want it. This is my Michael Phelps moment. But I saw the opposite in some classrooms. And that's what we love teaching about, is how can you create those blended lessons that are both online and offline, and that give both, so kids aren't over teched. And when you use it purposefully. So, and one of the things that we need to think about as we go into this one-to-one classroom in 2021, and this happens a lot, we don't spend time on digital citizenship. We might do a lesson here or there, but for me in my classroom, with 21 years of doing this, I start my first week with digital citizenship. So where other people are doing protocols for how do you turn in homework and whatever, which I'm also going over in Google Classroom, but I'm talking to kids about what does it mean to be kind online. And I might use something like this, which is an Explore board. We're going to be talking about Explore boards in the Drive this month, but this is an Explore board. It looks like a game board, and kids go in and they watch, and they don't have to do it in order. They have 10 minutes to really explore what it means to be kind. And then we come back together, and together we form some norms for what we're going to do when we're online. Is it appropriate to mess with someone's slides? No. Is it appropriate to comment this way on another kid's post? No. What does good commenting look like? And we spend days diving into this. And so that I don't have those problems that people ask me about a lot, which is, how do you get kids not to mess around with each other's Jamboard frames? And I'm like, doesn't happen, because I spent the first 5 days talking with them about appropriate behavior, and not me telling them designing that for themselves.
No, I think that's the big important part. I think so many kids have been involved with, even the littles to some extent, have been involved with social media, texting, a variety of different things. And so many kids in our schools have had negative experiences, and they know what it feels like when digital citizenship is done badly.
Yeah.
Sadly, sometimes all they have to do is look at the adults in their life and how they handle their business online, and they start to see how bad it is and how it can trickle over into the real world. And so if they have some of those, sort of painful experiences in their lives, and they start to see that we don't want to do that, and we don't want to have to go through that, and they get to help come up with the solution. That's what I love about this. What Holly's suggesting here is that kids are helping to come up with the solution, and they're brought into the conversation, and they're helping set it up. And then what happens whenever they are a part of the solution and they help set the norms and expectations, Holly?
Well, they have buy-in. They also, and I hate to use this word, but they kind of police each other. They're like, that's not appropriate. We've talked about that, and I don't have to do it from that point on. And I even go so far as to have kids take an expo pin and write on their desk first. So I give an example, like if someone put this up online, what would be a good comment? And they write it on their desk, and I walk around the room and I'm like, oh, look at this one. And we do it offline first before we go online. So it's just really, really important. And it's modeling.
Yes, absolutely it is. So that's definitely one thing we need to take into consideration, in this life after remote learning. This is what we're talking about today, right? The one-to-one classroom in 2021. We want to think about, how can we create those purposeful uses of digital tools? And then, of course, we've got to think about the digital citizenship too, which is kind of like laying the foundation before you build the rest of the year, before you build the rest of the house, so to speak. And if you build it in a way that it isn't going to crumble, then you've got something solid to build on. So what else is there? Let's talk for just a second about consistency, because I think so many times whenever you get those devices for the first time, or you get going at the beginning of the year, you don't have the routine set up yet. And it's really easy sometimes, especially if you're sort of newer to one-to-one, it's so easy to kind of slip into the ways that we did things before and leave those laptops under their desk, or leave those Chromebooks in the backpacks or in the lockers or something like that. And, you know, we don't necessarily want to force technology into the things that we do, but we also don't want to totally leave it out either, because you do start to build those routines and build that rhythm. I know, when I was teaching high school Spanish, before class started, it was our daily routine that whenever students came into my classroom, we went over to the Chromebook cart. They would grab their Chromebook, they would go back to their seat, set it down, open it up, log into the Chromebook, and then go straight to Google Classroom. Yep. Like every day, we got into that routine. Mm-hmm. And so as long as you're consistent with it, even if you find just a little reason to use it every single day, or pretty close to every single day, students build those routines. It's like they're building muscles, you know? And so then if you've put it off for like 3 days or 3 weeks or something like that, then when you decide you want to use the technology, all of a sudden it's, wait, we didn't bring those. I got to go get mine out of my locker. Yeah. What's my password again? How do I log in? Where's that site you want me to go to? It's like, you have to battle all that stuff.
Yeah. And it's like, Matt, I've talked about this before. So technology should not be an add-on. We shouldn't be like, oh, everyone go to the Chromebook cart because we're going to do this activity now that's technology based. It's like if you had kids and they had pencils and they were in the packet, you wouldn't be like, okay, everyone get your pencil packet out. Let's open it now. Okay, this is like, that's what you're doing when it's not just there and ready to be used. And to them, technology is invisible to our Gen Z learners. And that means like it's invisible to them because they were born with it. Yeah. It's just like a phone in our house is invisible to us. In fact, really invisible now. But we don't think of it as something, and they don't think of technology as an add-on. In fact, I was reading some statistics for something I was doing for the drive, and one of the statistics said that kids are really, high school kids especially, are super uncomfortable with how uncomfortable their teachers are with technology.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we're the Explore board. You're going to be getting this link to this slide deck, so you can look at it there. We're also going to be talking about it in the drive this month. There's going to be a whole lesson lab on Explore boards, and Explore boards are amazing. So let's go to the next slide and talk about. Sorry, my mouse got moved around, and this is another thing that we need to do now that we have technology. So we need to really let the technology be empowered by cognitive research. So cognitive research is a pretty new science. When we were kids, especially me, because I went to school in the 1980s, there wasn't any cognitive research. There was research around stuff, but now we're looking at how the brain lights up under certain experiences, what happens with synapses, and we know a lot about brain-based research. In fact, we're going to talk about it in a second. So we need to take that research, which I hear about all the time, and then they're like, we need to do recall or whatever. Yeah, so let's use this tool for that purpose. And that's the purposeful use of digital tools. So an example of that from a book called NEURO, and usually I have it right next to me, but I don't today, says that having students reconstruct what they know through alternative assessments leads to deeper understanding and consolidates learning in more powerful ways than traditional testing, which means there's this transfer of knowledge. There's these neuron synapses that happen when we have that deeper learning, and we don't have that. We just don't with multiple choice questions. Maybe every once in a while we get a good one, but most of the time we get regurgitation. So we want to look at these books and take that cognitive research and apply it.
You know, when it comes to this, like you were saying earlier, when students reconstruct what they know in an alternative way, in sort of a creative way, deeper understanding, consolidating learning in powerful ways. Isn't it cool whenever research comes out and it just kind of backs up what you've always sort of believed in education? I think for so many of us, we've thought, man, this just makes sense. Do they do sort of like the mindless, repetitive, busy work? or do we have them do something that's meaningful to them? Like, I remember for the longest time, I've thought, I hope that that's the way that it works because that's the way I want it to work. And then you start to see things like this and it all totally falls into place. So I love that.
So when I was first teaching with technology, after my one-to-one, like that early one-to-one experience, it was with iPads. And I've taught with iPads probably equal amount with Chromebooks. And with my iPads, my students came up to me and said, Ms. Clark, can you please go back to worksheets? And I was like, oh, like I thought this was so awesome. And oh my gosh, maybe I'm wrong. And I asked them why, because I'm like, well, gosh, maybe I don't have this down the way I do. And so I said, why do you want me to go back to worksheets? And they said, because we don't have to think as much when you do those. And we have to think so hard all the time in here. And it's just a bit much, like, and I was like, then we're doing good. This is how I want it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we look at this book, and here it is, it's called NEURO Teach. And we look at alternative assessments. There are 13 things teachers should never do again in this book. So they have 10 things or 12 things you should always do. And they have 13 things. They're called the unconscionable list. And I have a link to it here. So when we send you these slides after, you can link on it and see the others. But the number one thing they don't want you to do again, and it sits at the top of the list, is pop quizzes for a grade. And a lot of people see that and they're like, man, I remember we were doing this like last week and someone said, I was going to do a pop quiz tomorrow.
Right, exactly. I think we changed our mind.
And the reason is because of the fact that what are pop quizzes meant to do? They're gotchas. That's not good teaching. They're also to make they're gotchas like, did you do the research or did you do the work last night? But they also are anxiety ridden. And when a kid has anxiety, anything that they do from that point on, they're not going to remember because their brain is worrying about the anxiety. And I don't know if people know this, but formative assessment, while it's meant to inform us, it's really meant to, and I hope you're listening to this, it's meant to form memory. That's where we get the formative. It's meant to form memory. And so are you doing something in that formative assessment that will help you to know if kids are getting it? But most important is that it forms memory for those kids. It helps them keep it in their memory and makes the learning stick. And pop quizzes don't do that. And for a grade, how can you judge someone's learning journey? That's just not right. That you wouldn't want to do that. So we'll send you, and you can see the complete list. And number 2 always kills people because it's never start class by going over homework.
Oh, that's right. Can I just riff on that for a second? Yeah. Because I've dealt with this before. I've gotten into class, and when I used to give homework, I would start class and we would go over the homework because it just makes sense that, hey, I'm going to collect it. Let's go ahead and go over it now. And at some point I started to realize that, they always say those first 5 or 10 minutes you have in class. And when I say 10 minutes, I really mean 5 minutes probably, are the golden opportunity, like those golden minutes for student attention. And what are we using that for? Homework, arguing about homework, going over homework we've already done, checking out because it's like, I've already done this. Why are we spending more extra time on this?
Or I didn't do it. And I'm all nervous right now. And going over homework, you said it's the golden hour. So here's what we know from cognitive research, that a student can't learn deeply about something they're not interested in. And if you lost that 5 minutes to get them interested in what you're going to be doing that day, then the learning deeply and making the learning stick can be a little bit harder. And you're now in an uphill battle to get their attention.
Yep.
So it's pretty, like this list, you guys will be sending that out. And some of your emails, well, I guess yours aren't because you're here, but some people's emails they think it's spam or something. So the next thing that we want to think about in this 2021 is making those digital upgrades. And I'm going to let you talk about that, Matt.
Yes, that's right. The small digital upgrades, in like Holly said, in this whole one-to-one classroom in 2021, life after remote learning, as we're trying to figure out what to do with these devices. I know so often, a school goes one-to-one and all of a sudden the teachers are going, what am I going to do with all of these Chromebooks? What am I going to do with all of these laptops? Like, what am I going to do? And of course, there is so much that we can do. The more that we learn about it, we can really see the transformative effect that they have. But it's hard to see at the beginning. And so when we start small, that can be really powerful. And so let's talk about small digital upgrades. And here's what I mean by that. Let's take an activity that you already do in class anyway. I'm going to take an activity that I bet so many of us watching have probably done a version of at some point, and that is the poster project. I know I used to do the poster projects too. Like, they were sort of a hassle because you had to get the poster board in there, and then you had to get markers and all the stuff. I remember the old days where you had to go down to the library and get magazines to cut pictures out so you could make posters. And I usually was late to the party on that. So I ended up with like a stack of 1972 National Geographics. It was like not very much that we could use out of those. But the poster project, and there was lots of good that would come out of the poster, but there was some good that would come out of the poster projects at least. And when we're talking about using our devices, sometimes it's easy to start with something that we're familiar with. So in this case, let's start. We're not going to end here, but we're going to start here with what's a digital version of that. Well, maybe a digital version of that is very simply to recreate that digital poster in a different tool. One of my favorites is Google Slides or Google Drawings. Holly loves Canva. And so we know that Canva would be a good fit there. And so having your students make them there would be a great way to go. But we don't want to stop there, because you see, once we do that, once we just recreate something we used to do face-to-face, but recreate it digitally, we're not adding two things. That's what the old Sammer model would call substitution, substituting the old way with a new way with no functional improvement. So let's do some functional improvement. We're going to take it at this level where it is, and we're just going to make small digital upgrades. We're going to ask ourselves, what can we do to this activity with the technology that will make it go a little bit better, that'll just level it up a little bit? So if we start here, maybe one of the questions is, what can we do with images? Well, we have the entire internet of images available to us. We have great repositories of Creative Commons images. So just using more images, boop, there's an upgrade right there. What if we take that activity and now we use hyperlinks to link to an article, to link to, a Wikipedia entry or something? Now, all of a sudden, it's an interactive poster, an interactive digital poster, right? Well, let's even take it a step further. Let's do another upgrade. What if we link to something that's multimedia? What if we're doing a poster about dolphins and we want to see a dolphin swim? Link to a video of a dolphin swimming. There's another upgrade. Link to an audio file of dolphin communication so you can hear it. Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden, this poster doesn't look that much like a poster anymore, because it's almost like an interactive multimedia web page that students have created. So you see, when you get those devices and you're going, what in the world do I do with those? One good place to start with is, let's start with something that we know that we like, and let's just find ways to make small digital upgrades to it till it becomes something better.
Matt, you're not stopping there, are you?
Oh, keep going. I know where you're going to go. You do it.
Because that's where every teacher stops. And the best upgrade that you can do is now have them take that thing that they created, and either with backdrops in Flipgrid, it can become their backdrop and they can sit and point to stuff, or they can take the actual thing and download it from Canva or Slides and upload it into Flipgrid and put it on their screen as a sticker or photo now. And they can talk about their learning journey, so we can understand, why did they choose those pictures? Why did they choose voices about dolphins or the dolphin, whatever, I don't know if it's voices, but the sounds that dolphins make. Yeah. What were they trying to convey, so that we can hear about their thought process? We can hear about what they were trying to do and whether or not they got there. It's also really nice to hear about things they might change if they did it again, things they really are proud of. And so this is where the biggest change that teachers can make and they're not doing is hearing about each kid's learning journey. And in 1980, I had to go to my teacher's desk and be like, okay, here's my poster and here's what, and she never did that because it took too long. So now we have this great we have these great digital tools that allow us to do that. So I call it press record. And I tell people, like, you should not leave your classroom for the week without having heard from every kid in your class. You need to know what their thoughts are, and you need to know what they know. So I get a little passionate about that. And that's why this choice board. Now, I'm a little iffy on choice boards if I'm honest, okay? And I love this one. It comes from a teacher in Southern California named Amanda Sandoval, and I took it and I kind of made it more appropriate for me. Now, at this one, the kids have to do this reading and watch a video on something, and then they can respond by doing an infographic, a digital poster, or a photo bento. Now, here's where I get a little iffy. I first need to teach kids what does a good infographic look like? What are we putting in an infographic? Once I teach them that can become a choice. And then I need to teach them how to do a photo bento, because I can't just be like, I could leave a video, and that's possible. I could do that. But I really want to unpack good digital design, because that's an important skill in 2021. So I would want to put these as choices once we had learned how to do them. People disagree with me, and I'm open and okay with that. But maybe them saying what they're really good at. Maybe I don't know that they're super good at Google Drawings, and they could have the agency to say, can one of my choices be drawings? And I would have to be like, yes, please. But you'll notice that the last one on this choice board is that press record again. Okay, you made one of these three things. Now explain your thinking and explain why you chose to do an infographic and chose the things that you did on that infographic using Flipgrid. So it's press record. Because if a kid can tell you what they learned it.
Yes, absolutely. So I totally wholeheartedly agree with this one. Scaffold your new tech integration. Make sure that students know what they're doing before you turn them loose on a whole bunch of things, because whenever you've got all of those choices, sometimes we think, oh, this is great, we're giving them lots of options. Lots of options can be overwhelming too, can it? So yep,
and
exactly.
You'll find, and all the teachers here know this, if you put Google Slides as one of those options, they'll just do Google Slides all year long because they know how to do it, and they won't push themselves a little bit. So people love choice boards because they look beautiful. My advice is start with an Explore board, and I can't wait to be teaching about that in the lesson lab this month, because I think Explore boards are the first technology integration that you should think of doing. I mean, it should be Flipgrid and some digital assessment stuff, but when you're having kids, when you're using a doc for something like this, my first choice would be for Explore board. So I'll let you talk about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we continue to work our way through all of these, our life after remote learning, the one-to-one classroom, we've talked about being consistent with our technology, about using, setting the foundation with digital citizenship, about using brain research, and making small digital upgrades, scaffolding our technology, all of those things. I wanted to kind of land on this one, because if we're really talking about the one-to-one classroom in 2021, the big thing that so many of us get lots of professional development about is our learning management system. They sit you down, almost everybody sits you down at some point at the beginning of the year and go, okay, we're going to give you Canvas training. We're going to give you Schoology training. We're going to give you Google Classroom training. We're going to give you Microsoft Teams training. And then you have to sit and listen to somebody say, this is how you make an assignment. Click this button, then click this button, then type this in. Yeah. And after a while, you're like, oh my goodness. But because even though there's all of that focus, all of that emphasis on the learning management system, it doesn't have to all begin and end with the learning management system. See, I hear so often teachers will come up to me and they'll ask me a question. They'll say, do you have any good Google Classroom assignments?
All the time.
And see, I hear that question and I know what their heart is. They want to be good digital pedagogists, even though they don't know that word yet. I think they sort of start to know that that's where they want to go, but they frame it through the learning management system because that's what they've had the training through. And see, I think so often we have to remember what the purpose of our learning management system is. And to give you kind of an idea of what that does, I'm going to take you on a big, wild analogy for a second, okay? So buckle your seatbelts because here we go. So Holly, let me ask you, let me have you be my guinea pig for this, okay? So I want to ask you a question. If we were going to think of like bucket list vacations for you, I want you to just like picture one big bucket list vacation that you would love to have. And if you're watching this right now, drop them in the comments. If you've got bucket list vacation locations, bucket list vacation locations, I want to know what they are. So drop those in the comments. But Holly, what's probably the one that you're thinking of right now, at least?
Because you changed it to bucket list.
Yeah.
It's going to be the Maldives.
The Maldives. I have no idea where that, I've heard of it, but I have no idea where that is geographically.
I don't know if I really do either.
But you've probably seen pictures and know that it's gorgeous, right?
I think it's New Zealand. Oh, no, someone's is New Zealand. Yes.
All right. Well, I'm seeing Hawaii. I'm seeing Lindsay's going to Australia. Holly and I have both been to Australia and adore it. Frau Marco is saying New Zealand. Mm-hmm. So yeah, keep those coming. Okay, so Holly, since you got this in your mind, I want you to picture in your mind what this vacation would look like, what you would be doing
on the beach,
where you would be going, how gorgeous it would be, and how you would be feeling.
I'd be feeling relaxed.
Here's some other ones that are coming in. Noelle says Germany, Austria, Czech Republic. That's like a pretty impressive circuit that you could go on right there. Lenita's saying Australia, New Zealand again. And then here's one going back to Italy. Mike Brill is saying Denmark, happiest people in the world. I love all of these.
I'm with you.
Okay. So as you are thinking of this vacation, I want to ask you a question. Are you picturing the airport as you're dreaming about this vacation?
Never. In fact, I'm trying to avoid thinking of it.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. When people dream of these vacations, the airport is not one of the things they think of. And there's a big tie-in to all of this because you see, the airport is a means to an end. It's a way to get to the Maldives. It's a way to get to New Zealand and Australia and Hawaii and Denmark. And that's the way that your learning management system is too. Because your learning management system is kind of like your airport. It's the place that you go to create assignments. But from there, you can link out to different tools where all the good stuff happens. It's so easy with like Google Classroom, for instance, to look at it and go, this seems kind of underwhelming. Like, where's all the good stuff? Well, the good stuff doesn't live in Google Classroom. The good stuff is when you jump out and you use Adobe Spark or Flipgrid or Book Creator or Soundtrap or yes, exactly, like any of these other things, and you link out to them. And you see, when you realize that, you start to see that your learning management system is like the airport. It's the way to get to the good destinations. And so if you want to have those really fantastic assignments, use your learning management system as an airport and not as the destination. That, I think, is the purpose of your learning management system.
And it's because of this. I think a lot of people think because they're going paperless on Google Classroom or Canvas, that somehow is like change their teaching. It's not changed your teaching. Paperless isn't a pedagogy. And so when we think of like those things we're going to put in Google Classroom, just because kids can get to it from there, that's the airport. We want the pedagogy to be the experience, the upgrades, the things that Google Classroom allows us to do by getting it out to students and getting it back in.
Yes, 100%. So those are some of the things that can kind of help us make the most of the one-to-one classroom in 2021. And I tell you what, being able to talk about this kind of stuff and being able to support teachers in this work so that they can make the most of these, devices and classrooms that they have. This is our jam. Holly and I love being able to do this, being able to work with teachers and support you and just provide you with what you need. We We absolutely adore it. It's really what gets us out of bed in the morning, to be able to, to be able to work with teachers and see the joy that comes through that in their students.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we've been really sad about is that whenever we get to work with teachers in schools and school districts and stuff, a lot of times we show up for a day and we get to work with them in a workshop and everything. And then afterwards we've got to go, bye.
I hope I see you again.
Yeah, it was wonderful. And then that's it. And we've been craving the opportunity to get to work with teachers sort of on a regular basis throughout the year, almost as if we were your tech and teaching coach, kind of like that teaching assistant in the background that like supports you and helps you level up all throughout the year, taking a little bit off your plate so that you can use that time for what matters most. And if that's
coming up with the ideas in the background, ooh, we know a good way to do that.
Exactly. So, if that's the kind of thing that sounds amazing to you, if you would love to kind of have that support, then Holly and I have created something that we want to tell you about real quickly tonight. And it's this thing called the Drive that you've kind of seen all over the screen tonight. And the Drive is a place where Holly and I support teachers all throughout the year. And we do it in a variety of different ways. For one, we create these great resources that you can use right away to level up your teaching and even to assign directly to your students right away. So we have these like make a copy downloadable templates. We have these great things called research cheat sheets where we do a whole bunch of the research. We dig into the nerdy brain science and the journal articles about what the best practices are for teaching, and we give them to you in short little snippets, lesson labs, tech tool tutorials, and all of that.
Like, for example, I'm going to do a lesson lab this month in the Drive on explore boards and how we can use them and make them and design them. It'll be one of the lesson labs I do.
Yes, absolutely. In addition to that, we also have these daily audio shows where, we record a little like 5 or 6 or 7 minute, kind of like a little audio message for you. You can watch them on video if you want. They're intended for you to maybe listen on your commute, on your way to work or on your way home from school or during lunch or something. And it just gives you one little idea, one little piece of inspiration, one strategy you can use during class. And a lot of it comes right out of those resources that we've created. And then in addition to that, there's also a community that goes with the Drive too. This is a group of what will end up being hundreds of teachers from several different countries and all over the United States, different content areas, different grade levels. And we all get to kind of share and learn from each other, our different perspectives and the different things that we've tried. And so this is what we've created, thinking that, this is that resource, that support that maybe you could use, that maybe you need to be able to do the work that you want to do. Maybe do it in a little bit less time so you can focus on what matters most, and maybe can help level up that instruction a little bit in, for the sake of your students. So this is what we're super excited about, right, Holly?
Really excited for 2 reasons. First, because as a teacher, I didn't know where to go to get ideas. Like I would just go out on the web and hope that person was a good teacher. And right now people do that with teachers, paid teachers. And I can't say if it's good or if it's bad, but we wanted a place where you could find all the resources, us, whether or not it's legit. And we could also form those friendships and relationships with educators that we don't get to. Like I was just in Tyler, Texas, and I have this group that was with me all day, and they usually will stay with me if I'm doing different sessions. And I love some of those teachers. And then I was like, okay, bye.
Exactly.
Follow me on Twitter, and we wanted to really have relationships with teachers. The thing that we're most passionate about is helping people change their classrooms for this century. And this gives us an opportunity to be able to do that and design and develop these great things that will get better as cognitive learning gets better and as the things we learn about that we can apply to technology integration.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So if you're interested in kind of learning a little bit more about it, you can jump right over to our website, which is the drive.online. That's what you see right here on the screen. And so as you kind of scroll down through it, you get to see what it's really all about. You get to see kind of like some testimonials of some of the people that have done it. And then you also get to see what you get in the drive too. And actually, if you want to open up some of the actual resources that we have created and put into the membership, you can click on these little blue links and see some examples so that you can kind of dive right into it. Now, there's one thing, Holly, that they've got to know about this, that it's kind of time sensitive. And right, which is kind of the big deal about tonight's live video. See, we've been talking about the drive, and we've opened the doors up for registration for a few weeks now. And we're opening registration for a fall cohort of teachers. We've got a couple hundred teachers already on board that are excited about this and are ready to go. And we want everybody to be able to start at the same time. Our deadline for joining just happens to be tonight. We've done a few of these leading up to this, and yeah, our deadline is tonight. So if this sounds like something that you want to do, and to be able to get in on the fall cohort to get some help with going back to school and getting your school year off on the right foot, now is the time. Like, strike while the iron is hot. So you might want to head to the drive.online this evening, check out some of those resources that you see over here on the screen, and then make sure that you click on this button that says register for the drive so that you can learn about how you can join monthly, join for the entire year. That's where you want to go to learn all about that. And so September 2nd, today is the last day to join that fall cohort.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sad about that because a lot of people are coming in today, but maybe that's why. But someone asked, with this information for college professors, and college professors are teaching, and this is all about pedagogy.
Yes.
So like we did a month with our founders in May, and we did it based on reflection. And whether or not you're doing reflection in college, you should be, because that's how students learn. So it's really not about grade level. It's about teaching as a pedagogy. And then also, how do we integrate that with technology to do those upgrades that make it better? And your college kids are definitely going to be expecting that you do that if they're coming from high schools that all have one-to-one.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, if you think about some of the stuff we've talked about tonight, we talked about Explore boards. Holly's going to lead us through that. And that's something that totally fits. We're going to be talking about digital citizenship and, setting things off on the right foot, which, some people might at first think, oh, college students, we don't need to spend time talking about digital You need to talk about digital citizenship because, especially since so much stuff is being done online these days.
Discussion groups, for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any of that stuff. So I think it would definitely be a good fit there. So,
and I'm really excited this month. I'm digging into the research behind our learners, which are Gen Z, which we kind of know about a little bit now, but I really go a little bit deeper into it, and Gen Alpha, which most people are not aware of. And whether or not you have them in your classroom, and you do if you teach 7th grade and under, you are dealing with Gen Alpha and not Gen Z. And what are they? How do they learn? What are their characteristics? But those Gen Alpha are coming up to 8th grade and then 9th grade. And then so knowing about these kids is really important, and how it is that we're noticing that they enter information. And when I say enter, I mean really deal with it. And they do deal with it differently than we did. And they expect you to deliver it. And I don't want to use the word deliver, but to unpack it with them rather than deliver.
And see what Holly was just talking about right there, that deep dive into Gen Alpha and Gen Z and who they are as learners and how we can reach them. That's exactly the kind of stuff that we dive into in this first month in the drive. In fact, the first part of the research cheat sheets is already sitting there ready to go in the member area of the drive. So if you sign up this evening, you can be reading that just as quickly as this evening. So that's the kind of stuff that's in there. And that's the kind of stuff that we love to be able to share with you, because it's kind of a hassle to wade through the research and the journal articles and all of the blog posts and everything.
Well,
and
I read 5 books to put that together.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So teachers don't have time to read 5 books.
No.
readings.
So see, Holly just pulled all of the gems out of all of that stuff and stuck it into those research cheat sheets. It's almost like Cliff's Notes, sort of.
Yeah.
You remember?
That would be better. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
And I'd like
anyway,
to say one other thing. I'm in a membership community for something else, and I never know where stuff is. And so that's the point of those daily audio things that we do, is to say, okay, today we dropped the research on Gen Z. Let's talk a little bit about that. So you whet your curiosity, so you'll go look at those, and we drop things out slowly. You're going to get research cheat sheets. Love it. Research cheat sheets, and then next week you'll get the lesson labs, because you're busy. If we put them all out at once, you would feel overwhelmed and you would like, I can't get to all this, and then you wouldn't do it. So we're going to inspire you with those daily audio or podcasts to remember to go in. So Matt and I have really thought this through in a way that can be successful for you and make you the best teacher you can be in 2021.
You know, you mentioned the podcasts or the audio shows or whatever you want to call them. What Holly and I kind of feel like that's what makes this unique, sort of, because you may have noticed that we call this the drive, right? Part of the reason we call it the drive is we feel like your commute is a little window of time where if we can equip you with something that'll help you during your day on your commute into work, that'll save you some time and help you to teach better. It's like it says on one of our slides anyway, make your commute your teaching superpower. And so that's why we record those little short messages that you can listen to every day on the way to school if you want to, or on your way home from school. So you get a little dose of Matt and Holly. Hopefully you won't get too sick of us. Hopefully it'll be like, we're just a regular part of your commute. So that's kind of what this is all about. So if you're interested in checking it out, then, definitely go head off to the drive.online. Anything else, Holly, as we wrap this up?
I just want to say, if you do decide to join, you're going to get an email that says join the Facebook group. And last year we had a couple hundred members when we were doing our founders launch. We have a lot more now, but only half of them came to the Facebook group. And I don't know if they didn't get the email or whatever. So if you join, look for that email and make sure that you kind of whitelist the emails, because I think people were missing stuff, and I want to get to know everyone. I don't get to do that. I sit here in this place or I travel to Tyler, Texas, or wherever, and come home, and I need new friends.
Yes, I know. That's right. I totally hear you. So if you got any further questions, feel free to reach out to us, reach out to us on social media, through our websites or email or whatever. We're happy to answer any questions for you. So the drive.online, that's the place to go check it out. Tonight is the last night to be able to register for the fall cohort. We would love to have you join. Yes.
It's specific time, so they have a little more time if they're East Coast, but
yeah. So wee hours of the morning for me on Eastern time, but we would love to see you in there. We would love to welcome you in. We're doing a lot of that welcome stuff right now. And so you won't miss a thing, and we would love to get to invite you in. So thanks so much for joining this, for being a part of this webinar tonight. We would love to see you in the drive. And other than that, we wish you the best for this school year, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.